We would like to briefly walk you through the work of two focus groups, the Faculty Mentoring Group and the Faculty Support Site Group. Starting with the mentoring piece, there are four main questions that guided how we looked at this issue, and one of them is just what is the work of the mentors and how are they going to be interacting with faculty, and particularly we became intrigued by the idea that not just working one-on-one, but they may be working with groups of faculty within program areas. Who becomes a mentor and how are they supported? And then finally, what is the mentoring model that we're going to adopt? And so one way that we can talk about a lot of these different issues is to think about how a faculty member comes to develop a course and the kinds of questions that they initially start to ask. And it's fairly common for a faculty member to begin with the technology. They've either seen it somewhere, been introduced to it by another faculty member, or simply in being thrown cold into the idea of developing an online class. Their first thoughts go to how do I transition to a new type of technology and what's available to me. But we'd like to approach that from a different perspective, and so the mentors can play a critical role in walking faculty back in the process before they jump into choosing what kind of technology they're going to use. And the step right before that would be to define the value of different teaching tools and habits that they're already using. And so the sense is for them to put some thought into what do they do now in their traditional classroom environment, and rather than simply just translating that into an online format, to deconstruct that and to understand what value those different habits or those different tools bring to the process, bring to students, and then to begin to think about how that value could be expressed using a new kind of technology. And so what we're really talking about is building off of a personal pedagogy, an understanding of the process in which teachers engage their students. And so even further back, and this is where we can think about how it might be useful to begin a dialogue with program areas and not just individual faculty, because ideally that personal pedagogy is at least informed, if not driven, by some signature pedagogy of the discipline. And so you can think about different types of professional fields where a signature pedagogy is really obvious, like rounds in a medical school, or a Socratic dialogue in law school, internships working with teachers. And so even stepping back further from there, we identify what a signature pedagogy might be by first thinking about what the learning outcomes are that we're going to expect. And so we begin by asking the question, what is it that we want our students to know? What is it that we want them to be able to do? And how do we want them to act? And so that is the knowledge, skills, and dispositions piece that if program areas haven't already unearthed those and done that work to consider what those might be, then mentors can work with faculty to begin at least asking those types of questions themselves and making sure that if that work's already been done, that they're staying tethered in some way to those expected learning outcomes as they develop their course online. So we'll make a transition now to talking about the support site, but really briefly before I make that transition, I guess I want to add that there are still some questions that we have that are unanswered. I mean, here we talk a little bit about what the process might look like, and in this process you'll see different ways that mentors could engage. We don't think that any one mentor would engage in this entire consulting process, or that this consulting process would be necessary for everybody who's involved, but that some programs and some individual faculty may really want to take advantage of this entire process and looking at the whole system and how what they're doing fits in their discipline and in their program. And it may be that different mentors have different levels of expertise in working with programs as they develop signature pedagogy, or in working with translating pedagogy into technology. And so there would be some coordinating that takes place among those mentors. And our sense early on is that that would be a good thing, to have different hands involved and to be able to coordinate those in some fashion. So the next thing we want to take a look at is the faculty support site. And so three main questions that are driving this are simply how is it going to be structured, what's the content going to be on the support site, and how will it sustain itself, how will it evolve over time. So a few things that we've identified that we think would be valuable. One is that the site be navigated by need and not simply by content. And what we mean by that is you're going to see a lot of examples of websites that simply throw a lot of content in a variety of different folders and ask people to navigate them. That assumes that they know what they need, where while some of us will, some of us won't necessarily know what we need. And so being able to identify what your needs are, or where you are in the process as an initial way of drilling down into content, we think would be more helpful, both for the novice and frankly, for the expert. We'd like it to be interactive, which would include a voting and a dialogue component. And part of that means that it would be crowdsourced, the material itself, but also the dialogue would also have a voting feature. And so as people posted content, then those users would be able to identify whether this was useful or perhaps not useful. Perhaps they'd be able to tag it as useful for certain types of steps in the process. And also as people added comments, people would be able to vote on the strength of those comments. And so very easily, this crowdsourcing would bring the most valuable commentary and the most valuable items near the top, where it would be easier for novices particularly to identify and navigate. And then one of the things that we definitely want to emphasize is that there are a lot of resources already on campus as well as off campus. And it's not our intention that this would replace those, but rather this would be a portal to bring together some of the excellent work that's already happening, and be able to access them all through one support site. So the content's going to serve faculty at all stages of course design and delivery. There are people who are just starting out, who've never thought about teaching online. There are people who have taught online several times and are looking to start a new kind of course or refine what they're doing. And then there are those people who are already in the process of delivering and constantly modifying as they go. And so we imagine that there would be multiple teaching tools that could be offered for those novices particularly, with some rich analysis of the value that those tools might bring to a particular style. So as a faculty member identifies how it is that they teach, what their personal pedagogy is, and what value they want to bring to a particular experience, whether it be a discussion or a type of lecture, then we would have different examples that fit those different characteristics or values. And so you can imagine sort of a cafeteria style way of pulling together some templates for how to proceed that's value driven. And for the novice, then that's an opportunity to put a course together and try it out. And so we know that there's going to be a lot of change that goes on, but that's where the mentor can really help them to navigate and assess whether something is working or not working. And we feel that would go a long way towards easing that very first semester when somebody is trying to develop a new course, and all the options, frankly, seem quite overwhelming, particularly when you don't know what you don't know. And some of the other content that we would see would be sort of secondhand articles about teaching online, first-person accounts of people's own experience, posting of tools that people are using, and analysis of best practices that people can draw from. And now how this support site would evolve. The crowdsourcing feature itself will go a long way towards keeping it fresh. And so the users themselves will identify what's useful. The users, in addition to posting content, can also post questions, and so the other users can bring their own expertise to bear, and so that will help keep the content fresh. But then there has to be some ownership by a group of moderators that also is not only posting fresh content from within and outside the university, but also looking to spark dialogue and get people involved and engaged in the site so that their voice is a part of that evolutionary process. So those are some of our big ideas of how we think these two initiatives might play out. We realize that there are a lot of questions that are left unanswered, but we hope this is a good starting place, and we're looking forward to your feedback.